Welcome to today's episode of Cash Flow Pro. I hope everybody's having a wonderful day out there today. I know Miss Bethany Finch is because she just told me she is in sunny California, or at least she's in California and it's sunny there today. So Bethany's with American Made Home Solutions, and we are certainly just absolutely ready to hear what you have to tell us, because there's so many different ways that you've helped so many different people get started in the investment space and then move along from LP to GP to KP and so on and so forth. Now, for those listeners that wonder what that is, that's limited partner to general partner to key partner. So, and that's obviously a ladder on the way up. So, Bethany, how are you today?
I am great, Casey. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. We're certainly glad that you're here, and we're certainly glad that you're going to get to spread whatever word you've got. So, if you would tell us a little bit about your background. I always like to get a kind of an initial idea of where people came from that got them to the doorstep of real estate, and then we'll go forward from there.
Okay. So I was born many, many moons ago. Just kidding. I've been an entrepreneur for over 26 years. I was in and out of foster care and always had to figure out how to raise money for clothes. Boys' hand-me-downs were terrible when you became a teenage girl and you didn't want to look like that anymore. So
Yep.
I was always trying to find a way to make a buck. And I grew up in a very small town. So anything and everything to get me back out of that small town was kind of what I was doing. So I did sports, not because I was talented, but because it was a way out. Loved sports, loved working in a team. But thankfully, I had some coaches who saw that I didn't always have the skill set necessary,
Yep.
but they
Yep.
knew I was the hardest worker. So because of that, they kind of came alongside me and really helped mentor and coach me through life and showed me, Bethany, you've got the hustle. You need to be your own business. So started, as young as 10 years old, running a business and building things up and trying to find ways. And then when I got married and started having kids, it was an opportunity to create income but be flexible so that I could still be there and take care of my kids and kind of work opposite shifts of my husband and things like that. And so one of the businesses I even ran as a loss just to offset his taxes. So
Oh,
that was
wow.
another income strategy approach. Anything I could, and then as I got better in business, I realized some businesses are a lot more work than others
Yep.
and figured that out and finally got to where this real estate thing is work, but it's not near as much work as some of the other ones I did. So
Yep.
I was happy to jump on that train and learn whatever I needed to do to move forward there.
Sure. What segment of the real estate business did you initially start with?
Initially, it's twofold. So my husband has always been in multifamily.
Okay.
He literally has worked his way from the ground up as a groundskeeper all the way to now owning apartments.
Oh, wow.
I, on the other hand, was always on the business side of things.
Okay.
So I am the one that started the business, but my husband, although he partnered with me, he didn't have anything to do with the business and it was all me. And his thought process was, well, we can't own $1 million apartments. So you need to start with single family homes. That was his thought process. He didn't
Yep.
understand finance. He didn't understand anything. Being the good
Okay.
wife that I am, I said, sure, I'll try it. And I must have done a phenomenal job at showing him how much harder the work is for one single family home
Yep.
as it is for a 20 unit or a 40 unit or even a 100 unit.
It's
And
almost the
so
same, really. I mean, for
it
when you
is.
really get down to it, I mean, it's yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I just that's one
Oh
thing
no,
that really.
it is the same work. That's exactly what I was trying to show him. Like, you don't understand how hard it is to get contractors to show up to one house. If I had 20 of these, they'd show up in a heartbeat. But I have
Yep.
one, you know? And I remember firing 8 contractors on one project alone. Because again, I was a female, I'm in a predominantly male place. They had no respect for me, and I just had to keep one after the other. So basically, if I learned, a good coach taught me, you basically need to know 60%. So I can pretty much build a house from the ground up 60% of the time. I won't get
Yep.
everything right, but I'll know enough to kind of more or less be dangerous.
Yep.
So I always tell my guys, if I know 61%, someone's fired because there's no longer a need for you.
That's exactly right. Because then you can go in there and you can get enough on the job education to capture the other 39% real quick. I'm sure.
Exactly.
So, yep, that's the same. Yeah, absolutely. I hear that all the time and see it all the time too. And that's a wonderful strategy because, again, the 61% is probably the stuff that you can get from a book. The other 39 you're going to have on the job anyway. So,
100%. Yeah. When my husband finally came on board with us full time, he did one flip and said, "Why are we doing single family again?"
so now it was your turn to say, I told you so.
And be able to go, okay, can we please go back to multifamily?
There you go, and then just press on from there. I mean, yeah, it absolutely makes the most sense. And you have one roof, you have one of a lot of things. And when you start talking about multifamily, that if you had 20 of them that you need the same thing done on, people are definitely going to show up because, especially in this day and time, getting people to show up to do any type of work is just, you might as well be just grinding teeth. I mean, it's terrible. So,
Yeah.
all right. So let's talk a little bit about when you finally made a move to multifamily and you said, all right, it's time for us to scale this up at least to the notch of the first multifamily complex and whatnot. What did that entail? And then did you have to go out and find a key partner? Which, for the listeners out there, you've heard this term a couple of times. It's not one that gets used a ton in podcasts and on discussion level because there's not as many key partners in around as there is GPs and LPs. But a key partner basically is they're what I call a balance sheet of the deal, where they're like, hey, yes, I'll go sign on this $20 million loan for you. You raise the capital, you do this, you do that. And then the key partner underwrites it. So anyway, so how did your first deal look when you started kind of getting everything put together?
Well, I'm going to have to step you back just a little bit
Okay.
because Kurt, again, still had that what I call broke mentality. And I say it's broke mentality because all he did was basically try to create another job for himself, and he wasn't building a business. So once he said multifamily, he still wanted to just create another job. So he wanted to do super tiny, 8 units or 10 units that we could run everything. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. That's
Yeah.
work. That's
Yeah.
craziness. I don't want to. No, I'm trying to get out
Duplicatable.
of a job. Right.
Yeah.
So after kind of going through and kind of showing him the difference in numbers, and that's what it was. I really had to show him the difference. Okay, if we're going to do this property and here's the numbers we're going to get from that property, or we're going to do this property and it's, 10 times the size of that, but
Mhm.
here's our paycheck.
Yep.
Suddenly he was willing to do that. So I realized he wasn't there visionary wise where I was.
Yep.
So we decided to be an LP. And an LP is a limited partner, and we were already going through the Michael Blanc program and
Yep.
learning and getting the coaching. And to be honest, Kurt really wasn't. He felt he already knew it all because of his work. And of course, what he knew was not the same. It's like a
Yep.
roofer saying, I know how to run a business. I'm a roofer. They don't know
Yep.
anything about business. They know everything about roofing.
Yep.
So what we did was I said, look, let's do an LP. Let's basically have an opportunity where we are bringing some value to them and then they teach us a little bit more. And
Yep.
that's what we did. We went in on some apartments in Alabama, and it was great opportunity to learn. They did a great job. They're very good at reporting and keeping in touch. We even met with the operators, did some on-site property walks and different things, and
Sure.
so it was great. And through that, Kurt started going, okay, well, we could do this. So he went from an 8 to 10 unit to maybe 40 to 60 unit. So we at
Okay.
least got that farther.
Yep.
So the first deal that we decided he was like, okay, let's pull the trigger on this, was actually me just capital raising for a
Okay.
deal. I came alongside, I brought in some other investors, and basically became on the GP side as a capital raiser and helping to market and investor relations and whatnot with that
Sure.
particular group. I did some due diligence walks, helped them out there. Obviously, our asset management background, huge asset, actually saved them. We came across something that none of them caught, saved hundreds of thousands of dollars because of it. And So,
Sure.
we brought value to the team that way. Then, when we finally said, okay, let's be our own GPs, that was a 42 unit. And we teamed up with some other good friends of ours in a mastermind.
Okay.
And they had no real experience in the multifamily space. They have business experience and real estate experience, but not like multifamily experience.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have all the multifamily experience. And so we're like, okay, well, we got those two parts covered. And then we brought in a third member from our mastermind who was the key principal.
You're raising cap. You've got a key principal now, and you're a GP, and you're raising capital. You said you were a co-GP, right? Did I miss that?
Yeah, we were all co-GPs.
And your mastermind was Michael Blanc's program.
No. So my training was Michael Blanc's program.
Gotcha.
I'm part of Kingdom Capitalists. It's Kingdom Real Estate Investor Mastermind now. They changed the name on us, but
Okay.
it's a Christian mastermind group that I'm a part of, and several of us teamed up to do this.
Gotcha. Okay, awesome. And what year is this? How many years ago is this?
That was finally 2020.
Okay, so 2020, you all kind of all agree to digest your first deal, raise some capital, and start kind of moving this boat forward, right?
Yeah, we had already done other things like other LPs and other syndications where we were helping to raise capital and whatnot. But this was our first, like, we were the lead GP.
Awesome. And isn't that a good feeling? I mean, you get kind of really get a little bit of wind in your sails. And how big of a deal was it?
That was only a 42 unit. It was big for
definitely-
us, right? Kurt was like panic stricken, and it's a lot more. I laugh because you said, "Man, wasn't that a good feeling?" No, I remember totally being stressed out.
Yeah. And
When you're just raising for someone else, it's different.
And I guess everybody's on the spectrum of stress. Everybody's kind of on there to different degrees. So what did your first underwriting model look like? I mean, did you know to spreadsheet everything? Did the key partner kind of step in and say, "Hey, these are the numbers I want to see before all"?
No. So I went through an earlier real estate training program 5 years ago, Fortune Builders, and theirs was geared towards single family, but I was a math teacher. So it didn't take me long to run numbers and go, okay, single family is not the way to go, and there's a better model than this. And so they didn't have commercial training at that time.
Okay.
So I sought it elsewhere, but I had enough other kind of members of the group that were on the same path that I was. So we all had already been kind of working through our own underwriting. And then when I got Michael Blanc's, honestly, I have seen a ton of different underwriting programs out there. His is by far, hands down, the best out of all of them. And everybody that I show and talk to, they 100% agree. So I had all of that. We have the full package in the sense that I could already run the numbers. I knew it was a good deal. Here's where we tend to land. Obviously, with our asset management background, it was easy for us to do the due diligence and the CapEx and, put all that in there and still be conservative. So for the key principal, he looks at those numbers all the time. He has his own business and things. So that it made complete sense to him. And he's like, sure, I'll do this. Not a problem.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's great. And that tends to be, I think, a bottleneck for a lot of people, is especially because a lot of people think that they're going to start with Freddie and Fannie and getting some type of loan like that until they start researching the qualifications. Then I think the bottleneck arises when they realize, oh, I've got to have a net worth of this in order to borrow that. And then they start trying to, I guess, shovel their way through and figure out who they need to talk to and where they need to go. And that's, again, so which brings up another point that I'm a huge proponent. I'm in a mastermind, you're in a mastermind, and I think virtually every guest that I have on this show, the one common thread that we all share is, and I say all, most share is the fact that we're in masterminds, or we have a mentor, or we have somebody that stopped and said, "Hey, I'm going to tug you along and show you the ropes and teach you as we go." And so, although you kind of got the bonus out of the mentorship or the mastermind program by actually having a key partner in there with you, right?
Right.
And having somebody that has the ability to sign on $10 million note, just somebody that has the ability to say, "Yes, I'm in. We can go get the money here. I'll take care of all of the, all of this, and this." It's huge, and it's a huge responsibility for them to do that. It's not a lot of risk, but it's one of those benefits of, I guess, having a balance sheet and that's truly passive income, because they a lot of times can make money just simply by being on the sidelines and saying, hey, yes, go use my credit or my balance sheet to borrow money for your deal and then pay me. Again, along the way, the bottleneck arises when people start to try to figure out, okay, where do I find one of these key partners? And that's what brings me back to saying the benefit of a mastermind is absolutely positively endless. The benefits, plural,
Hmm.
of a mastermind are endless. Wouldn't you agree?
100%. And the other part of that too is, remember, I was also part of a previous training program that there was about 5,000 of us in that other training program. Now, obviously, I didn't know all 5,000, but it allowed me access to my directory. And in that directory, it wasn't uncommon for us, like minded people tend to flock together, right? So when we'd be at meetings and trainings, you know who was running business while this training was going on because they're 10 steps ahead and doing this and that. So then you start kind of congregating and talking. And when we did that, we already figured out, okay, we could build 3 teams out of this, or we could build 2 teams out of this, or, you find those commonalities.
Yeah.
And it was easy to find key principles in there as well, because again, we all have the same training. They don't want to do the work and effort, or they don't have the experience, but they have, like you said, the balance sheet. In most of those situations, people don't realize, as a key principle, our key principles aren't necessarily bringing money to the table. They're
That's
literally just bringing their credit and their balance sheet. um, we still are doing full raises, right? I'm still
right.
working all of that out. We're still signing on the notes with them in partnerships and whatnot. And so, to literally, all I have to do is sign on the dotted line and let you pull my credit. And, yeah, I'll take 10% equity for that. Okay.
That's right. That's right. And then they just that
Yeah.
is truly, truly, truly that's more than passive. That's like while you're asleep money. I mean, yeah, that's doing nothing for money.
Right.
So let's kind of flip the side of this to the LP side, and I'm not talking about when you were an LP, but I want to talk about the LP side of your first deal. Where did you find investors and what did that landscape look like as far as like obviously did you do friends and family to start? I mean, where did you find investors?
So, my earliest investors, well, actually, even still to this day, are not friends and family.
Okay.
I think what people forget is, ideally, we always expect, hope, want our friends and family to be those people. But the reality is, they're probably the most skeptical. They know us when we were snot nosed kids growing up and what we did wrong and every foolish thing. And, they remember that. So it, for us, was completely outside of that. They may have been an acquaintance of ours, but a lot of our earlier investors were people that we knew at a meetup. I did several speaking events and things, so they had heard me before, or we met at one of our training courses, different things of this nature.
Sure. Okay, good. And I actually, like you, I'm not a friends and family person for one. Whether a deal is going good or whether a deal is going bad, I heard very early on in my process when I first started investigating this business and found that it was exactly the path I wanted and needed in life was Thanksgiving dinner is awkward when you owe somebody money, whether it's
Right.
good money and certainly if it's bad money. It just creates a layer and an element that a lot of people don't realize is there when they take the initial investment.
Right.
And again, the last thing that you want to do is go to a family gathering and feel like you're having to report to investors. That's my take on it. Like I took that to the gut. I was like, that's exactly the way I feel. I don't want to go to Thanksgiving dinner. I don't want to be at Christmas and talking and having to talk to my aunts and uncles and feeling like I'm having to give them an investment report because
Right.
that's just not the dynamic that I enjoy. So, with that being said, obviously you have figured out your way in your speaking engagements. What types of speaking engagements had you done where people had recognized you?
So I spoke at a lot of different local real estate meetups. I've done some local community financial literacy training. I've also spoken to high school groups. Obviously, as a
Okay.
teacher, I had a lot of opportunity for that. But after teaching, I just saw the lack of financial literacy training. So I spoke at a lot of different, like, banks and places, chamber of commerces.
I wonder if we're ever, as a country or as an education system, as probably, in my opinion, one of the most educated countries on the planet. going to ever decide that it is equally as important to teach our kids like they don't need to be literate about big money things, but I mean these kids are graduating school and they don't even know how to balance a checkbook.
Right.
And I
Well,
guess maybe
but
that's
that's
been a
because you're young,
generational.
Casey. You're young. I remember in school having home economics class. See, you're too
Mhm.
young. You don't remember that. In home economics, we were required to learn how to balance a checkbook. We were required to learn how to set up a budget. We had a whole quarter like where you had to go find a job and build a resume. You know, you had your pretend money to pay your bills for the whole month and get groceries, all of that. That's what home economics used to be. And then suddenly, somewhere along the line, they decided that was not important. And I'm like, that was like the best class ever in
Yeah,
school.
yeah,
Why do
and
they not need
and
that?
and I guess as a population, times have changed. I remember one time. This is just one of those life stories, but I remember one time my dad had asked me to make some notes about something. I don't know, probably 19 or 20 years old. He said I was doing something, and he said, "Hey, can you write a few things down about this or something like that?" And I said, "Sure." So I did it, and I'll never forget. I handed it to him. I said, "Sure." I remember what it was exactly, and he looked at it and he threw it in the trash can. I said, "What?" I said, wait a minute, what? He said, I can't read that. Chicken scratch, I think is what he called it. He said, and then I got the 30-minute spiel about how when I was in school, we had penmanship. And if my penmanship had looked like that, I guarantee you, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, all right, fine. Why did you ask me to do it that? Of course, that was my attitude towards it. But nevertheless, it's the same type scenario. And again, that's life 101 for our episode today. How's that? Um,
Right?
just more economics class, more checkbook balancing, and more penmanship.
That's
So,
right.
but so listen, it's intriguing to me, and I do want to give you accolades or props or whatever because you really were kind of facing an uphill battle being a woman in a male dominated sport, I guess, if you will. And I think that it shows a lot of you about your character and how you handle situations. You have taken the reins on just forging ahead and saying, hey, I don't care what this is. I don't care what they say. We're going to do it. This is what we're going to do. And then getting your husband kind of follow along was a great part of your story. So definitely give you props for that.
Well, thank you. I think it probably helped. Like I said, growing up in and out of foster care and different things, I was basically, I have older brothers, right? So that's where all the
Sure.
boys' hand me downs and whatever came along. But I learned very, very young how to wrestle. And when I got to middle school, they didn't have girls wrestling. And I went to the coach and I said, I'm here to wrestle. And he said, well, you're a girl. You can't wrestle. And I said, well, why not? And he said, because you're a girl. And I said, show me where it says that. So he went to the rule book and it didn't say anything about girls couldn't wrestle. So he was forced to allow me to wrestle. He hated it. But at that point, he realized, wait a minute, I have two daughters. I might need to step alongside this a little bit more. So by my second season, he actually helped me work. I was the second one in the whole state of Washington, and we were able to start setting up. And now we have women's wrestling in the state of Washington because too
Awesome.
many boys, what do they call when they forfeited? They wouldn't wrestle against me. It was just because I was a girl. And the ones that did and didn't have a problem, both of us got better, right? We
That's right.
really became good partners.
Well, and that's I've got two daughters as well, and that's part of the reason why I say things like I give you accolades for pushing forward because there's nothing that makes me any more red faced and mad than when I've got three sons too. So then when one of them says either one of my girls says, well, I can't do that because I'm a girl, or the son or one of my sons says you can't do that because you're a girl. And again, it took me having daughters to realize what it really is going to take for them to be dominant in at whatever phase of life in whatever activity they're doing. And that's what I always say. So yes, definitely, now saying that you were the first or second woman wrestler in all of the state of Washington, that's pretty intriguing, and I think that's a good message to lead with for sure. So listen, we're getting towards the end of our time. I'd like to ask a couple of different questions. There's no right or wrong answer, but I'd like for you to just answer it honest as you can. What is the best book that you've ever read, whether it be business, real estate, or whatever? What's the best book that you've ever read?
Well, the same one that I still read daily today, and that's my Bible because
Yep.
I'm still a sinner and that ain't changing anytime soon. So I need all
Yep.
the help I can get.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
my second one, everything I think we have different seasons in our lives. So at different parts of my business or different parts of my life, different books spoke to me in different ways.
Yep.
And Dan Sullivan's Who Not How has been phenomenal
Got that on
at
my desk.
changing.
I've got that on
Yep.
my desk right over there.
Because
Yep.
I know and have learned through business the need for a bigger team, but I don't necessarily know how to communicate what's in my head to that team, right?
Yep.
So I have to be able to do that in a way that's effective. And I've gone through multiple assistants and multiple team players because I'm not the person I need to be. And believe it or
Yep.
not, Who Not How really addresses you and you being the person you need to be so that you can pass that on to the right person and who that person is and what that should look like. And so it literally is the tactical plan,
Yep.
right?
And
That
it
so
lays
many other
it all
books
out.
just theorize. And so that was the transformational one that really went ding, 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 ding.
Awesome. That's great. All right. What's the best trip that you've ever taken or hope to take?
So far, I would have to say when we took our daughter for her graduation trip, we took a Caribbean cruise. So we got to go to St. Thomas and the Bahamas and British Virgin Islands. Well, we didn't get to go to the Bahamas. The ship actually broke. We were stranded out at
Oh
sea.
no.
Yes,
Oh
it
no.
literally, the rudder broke. They couldn't turn. They could only go straight, so they couldn't go into the port. And oh yeah, but that was the first time my whole family that we had been out of country. And obviously, even with the ship breaking and all that, we experienced it. Got to experience it all together. And for my kids to get to see, you know, although St. Thomas isn't necessarily considered a third world island, I don't stick to the tourist areas.
Yep.
I literally grab my family and we jump on the local metro bus or walk or whatever. So for them to get to see life in a different place was very, very good.
Yes, absolutely. Wonderful. All right. Now, if the listeners heard something that resounded with them and they would like to reach out to you, possibly talk to you about investing or possibly talk to you about a speaking engagement or anything along the lines of anything they heard, what is the best way for them to reach out to you?
Well, the best way for them to reach out to me is going to be probably on my LinkedIn
Okay.
and just under my name, Bethany Finch. The best way that they can learn more about everything from multifamily and real estate investing and our credit hacking business or our short term rentals is on our YouTube channel, American Made Home Solutions. I've got 5 years worth of free content on there every week, putting out videos, helping any way that we can to help people get started.
Awesome. Awesome. Wonderful. Well, I want to thank you. I know that you're living in a car. No, I'm just kidding. I know that you're in a car traveling, and I want to just tell you thank you for taking the time out to be with us. I know it probably is not ideal if you're out running and going and doing and making money and all of that good stuff, or helping investors make money rather. I just want to thank you for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Casey, for having me. I
You're
appreciate it. I hope
absolutely
your listeners get some value out of it.
awesome. I hope you have a good rest of the day, and listeners, thank you all for listening.